I'm Maria Lane, professor of geography and environmental studies. So I did master's and PhD at University of Texas at Austin, and then came here, and I first was a PTI actually when I arrived. I just was teaching a couple courses per semester, and then the first year that I was here, there was 2 searches because the department had gotten pretty small. The dean authorized a couple searches, and I decided to apply, even though I thought I was only going to be here for a few years. I thought, this is a good place. I feel like it's a good fit for me, and decided to apply for one of those positions, and here we are. My undergrad degree was in Latin American studies, and I was mostly interested in Latin American politics and government and history. I moved to Washington, D.C., and I worked for the Organization of American States, which is a hemispheric humanitarian organization, kind of like the UN, but for the Americas. And in that organization, I was working on a regional development and environment project. That was the name of the department. And I worked on this natural hazards project. And I just got really interested in environmental planning and decided that that was something I wanted to go back to school for. But I just really decided to dive in on some of these questions about why do we think about environments the way that we do? How do we understand what's true about environments? And then how do we integrate that into our planning and our policy? Yeah, so one of the classes I inherited upon arrival here at UNM was Geography of New Mexico in the Southwest. And I just felt so lucky that that got assigned to me because it was a way to get to know this region. Just published a book last year, Fluid Geographies, which looks at the history of water policy in New Mexico during the transition period where we went from community-based water management to a centralized state-level policy, and tried to really understand that in detail, like what was happening, whose knowledge was being prioritized in that shift. I got interested in what are the possibilities for how we might do something differently just in our role, like my role, my individual role as a faculty member at UNM. What can I do differently to account for power relations? This became like an intellectual question for me that I had to ask, like, how do we translate this into action? We came up with this idea with a donor who was really interested in supporting us and supporting our work in geography, that we would start a center for community geography and take a really different approach to the normal R1 faculty approach to teaching and to research, that we would try to set up the center so that we could have a little bit of funding for students who could help us and to support classes that would engage community questions. I mean, I can't say enough to prospective grad students about what an incredible place University of New Mexico is. I mean, any R1 that you go to is going to have tremendous resources. It's a tremendous opportunity to develop some skills specifically, but that's the really important part of this, is developing a philosophy and an ethic of thinking about how do you reach the highest levels in terms of your research while not leaving anybody out. And that's what I think is really, really special. Looking at the New Mexico context, but really thinking more broadly about what is settler colonialism and what's the work that it does, and how can we think about like the details of it. If we really understand the details of it, then we can think about how do we get past this in terms of getting to the next political phase. I'm Maria Lane, professor of geography and environmental studies.